So we'll kick off today by talking about the latest Netflix sensation, Six Underground. For someone on a film podcast, I spend surprisingly little time reading up on what's in the pipeline, so news of Netflix tapping Michael Bay to helm this extravagantly be-budgeted action flick passed me by until, well, Greg, you mentioned it last week. Not that I'd been all that interested in what Mr. Bay's normally up to anyway, but I suppose there is some morbid curiosity in seeing what he can concoct with $150 million to burn. Six Underground very much starts at the means to go on, with a 15-minute car chase with more shootings, stunts, crashes, quips and fast cuts than most action films fit into their entire runtime. For about 7.5 minutes of those minutes, it's exhilarating, and for the rest it's exhausting. And again, very much as it means to go on. With that out of the way, we get into the very little that passes for character and plot, as largely through flashbacks, we find out how Ryan Reynolds, tech billionaire, puts together an anonymous team to dispense the sort of vigilante justice governments are not able to. He's faked his death alongside other recruits to put together a family of untraceable ghosts, those others being Melanie Laurent, Marcel Garcia-Rulfo, Ben Hardy, Adria Arjona and Corey Hawkins, who are now calling themselves numbers and not free men. This was prompted by Reynolds' character, one, witnessing an airstrike on a refugee camp he was visiting on a Pietropic PR junket in his prior life, so he has resolved to take down the man ultimately responsible and put his less objectionable brother in power. Again, through the mediums of crashing cars, shooting people and sinking yachts. It's not a subtle plan.
If the Fast and the Furious taught us nothing,
which it didn't,
it's that very few problems in the world cannot be solved by crashing cars into things.
Yes, and I'm sure that was very much the instruction from Netflix. Take Fast and Furious and Deadpool and just mash them together and weld over any joins with explosions, and by golly, that's what he's delivered. It is, as you should expect, squarely inside that little subgenre of Michael Bay action films, and, well, I'm not sure there's all that much point in delving into it much further. You probably know by now if that's the sort of thing you like. It's all glossily captured explosions and beautiful people and shooting and beautiful people, beautiful locations and car crashes. And you can absolutely see all that money on the screen briefly before it's destroyed, but the addition here is an almost non-stop stream of quips, primarily of course from Reynolds, which alongside the more deliberately ludicrous shots give this a breezy, lightly comedic ultraviolence vibe of a Deadpool, and how well that works will largely depend on your tolerance for Ryan Reynolds. Clearly not in the budget was any sort of depth for the characters or plot, all of which are the minimally viable framework to explode things with, and, well, look, you get the point. In the world of big dumb action movies, it is about as big and certainly as dumb as they come, and if you're in the market for that, then it will scratch that itch. I can't say I cared enough about it one way or the other to give you any stronger opinion on it. The first 15 minutes done beat the rest of it, perhaps, and I'm instead left with only a vague sense of dissatisfaction that so much money was spent to have so little lasting impact. Even when writing these notes, I spent more time reading about 60s cult show The Prisoner and the Sneaker Primp's post-1997 career, because they're less ephemeral. Netflix's search for a mass-market film franchise will need to continue, I imagine. Meh out of 10.
I have a bone to pick with both of you. Like you, Scott, I basically don't follow what's coming out. I just wait for stuff to turn up and I'll watch it if it seems appealing. I'd never heard of this film that was mentioned last week. Still didn't actually know anything beyond the name. Saw an advert for it yesterday on YouTube. Just a picture, but it had Ryan Reynolds in it, and neither of you bastards warned me. I might have watched that not knowing. So yeah, as to your comment for the Ryan Reynolds tolerance level, Scott, my weary sigh during your talk may have given away how I feel about that. Ryan Reynolds and Michael Bay and tiresome endless action, yeah, I'll never ever watch this, ever.
Probably right call. There is really only one interesting stunt in it, and it's in the trailer with the whole kind of magnetic thing, and yeah, that's really the only interesting thing. I mean, other than that, like, all the stunts are in typical Michael Bay fashion, captured quite well. It's just that you don't really care about any of it. It's just more cars bouncing into other cars and the usual nonsense, and it's just very hard to care about any of it.
I found out about it myself about 10 minutes before I posted that message to you guys in the Slack group last week, and as I said, my interest was primarily stoked by imagining what would happen to my soundbar when Michael Bay got handed $150 million in Netflix money. Now, I haven't watched it. And it's not because I find Ryan Reynolds objectionable. He's all right, but I do think he's at a little bit of risk of overexposure at the minute. I finally got around to watching Hobbs and Shaw the other week, which I enjoyed immensely, but I was sort of slightly taken aback to find Ryan Reynolds in it. And I'm now looking out for Ryan Reynolds popping out every time I pour myself some cereal in the morning, because it's the only place I haven't seen him yet.
It's Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds again.
But
Ryan Reynolds was particularly poor in Hobbs and Shaw as well. It's so irritating. It's like at least half an hour of that film could be cut out, and every bit of Ryan Reynolds in it is part of what could be cut.
But I will get round to watching this at some point. It's just not troubling the top of my watch list at all. I'm going to have to be in a very particular mood to watch this film. So I'll report back when I have. But I kind of feel guilty about the fact that I brought it up and you watched it. Sorry about that.
It was not unpleasant. I've seen far worse films. I think it's been...
Well,
its Rotten Tomatoes rating is far harsher than it deserves, given what it is. It is a big budget, crashy action film, and it delivers on that. It just is unremarkable, despite how
I'm
much
interested in it as an object because of what I've heard about it. I was listening to a popular film podcast from the Ringer Network the other week, and they were discussing this film, and the consensus around the table was hands up who thinks this was actually made for $150 million, because it looks like it should probably have been substantially more than that. Everything is shot on location. There isn't 5 seconds passing without something blowing up. And obviously you've got someone like Ryan Reynolds, who I'm sure didn't do it for free. I mean, I'm pretty sure Netflix are just handing people blank checks at this stage. So, $150 million, from what I gather, a lot of people view that dubiously as being a conservative figure for something like this. But I don't know. I'm just intrigued to see what Michael Bay does it when someone hands him a blank check and says, do what you like. Yeah,
it's either quite good CG, or they have actually got a really cheap yacht and sank it, because most of the things they're crashing and blowing up does look, for the most part, looks like it's real stuff, not apart from the more obvious ones where you just couldn't do that and have a camera away without it getting destroyed, these kind of things. But it seems like an awful lot of metal does get exploded in it. So just on the bill for the cars alone would have been a substantial portion of that $150 million.
Yeah, I'll get around to watching it.
No, it's something you said there, Craig, which I just can't quite reconcile with any of my own feelings. Just, you were quite interested in Michael Bay, and no. Don't see that myself, no.
Call it a morbid curiosity, Drew.